we are looking a little far ahead into the Pokemon trading card game future, but it's something that I think is worth looking at. Hey, Nick from 9Card TCG, and today we're going to be looking at a very interesting dark type deck. I guess it's not all dark Pokemon, but it's all your attackers are dark type, and that's kind of cool, I guess, especially if you are sick of Mew like I am. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this list. I put the link to where I found it in the video description, so if you want to go check it out, it's a Japanese website, so you can get a lot more, future content type stuff, future format type stuff from the website in the video description. So go check it out. Really cool. I use it pretty frequently, honestly. But we're just going to go ahead and talk about a Darkrai V-Star and Arbok EX deck. Let's just get straight to Poke here and check it out. Darkrai V, 210 health, weak to grass, which is kind of fine, despite the fact that everybody's talking about Meowscarada right now, and I don't really know why. There's really no grass going around, so kind of cool. We don't really ever attack with the Darkrai. I guess you could, but the attacks aren't anything worth using. Darkrai V-Star, on the other hand, is worth using. 270 health, Dark Pulse for 2 colorless energies, does 30 damage, plus 30 more damage for each dark energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So we can go ahead and get 2 energies onto this Darkrai, and then spread out all the other energies so that we can keep hitting really hard and always have backup attackers ready to go. Unlike something that requires all the energies to be on it, say something like a Weird V requires energies to be on it and you do more damage, like a Zacian V, those things, once you knock them out, all those energies now go into the discard. But with Darkrai, because we can spread those energies to other Pokemon, our attackers are always relatively safe. So if they boss KO something that you'd be building up on the bench, like I said, a Weird or Zacian, whatever, you lose all those energies, you lose all that effort. But since the energies are spread out in this deck, it's really not that big of an issue. We do have a V-Star Power Star Abyss. We can get any 2 items from our discard pile and put them into our hand, and we usually have a particular target that we're going to take a look at. Some of the other Pokemon in here are things like Galarian Moltres V. Dire Flame Wings is a phenomenal ability for this deck, which lets us take a dark energy from our discard and attach it to this Pokemon. Just by using the ability, we got 30 more damage with Darkrai V-Star. And then we can attach for turn. Now we got 60 more damage with Darkrai V-Star's attack just by using this ability and attaching for turn. So that's really, really cool. It allows us to kind of ramp damage at a very steady pace and really just set up this Moltres. We put it onto the bench, we Dire Flame Wings to it, and then the next turn we get Dire Flame Wings, attach for turn, and now it's attacking and ready to go. So really cool. The next Pokemon is the new one, Arbok EX. I apologize, it's in Japanese. There's really nothing I can do about that. It hasn't been shown in English yet, but what the card does is the first attack for 2 dark energies bind. The 70 damage, the defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. And then Menacing Fangs is the second attack for 150 damage. Your opponent chooses 2 cards and discards them from their hand. So it's a little bit of disruption with the Arbok, and it's kind of cool because we are going to pair it with something like Iono. So in the early to mid game, we attack with Darkrai. This is kind of the core strategy right here. Early to mid game, we attack with Darkrai, we attack with the Moltres, something like that. Our opponent takes the KOs, right? They knock out the Darkrai, they knock out the Moltres, they go down to 4 prizes, 2 prizes, something like that. Then we go ahead and bring in the Arbok. Once our opponent has 2-3 prize cards remaining, we can go ahead and play Iono, which says each player shuffles their hand and puts it to the bottom of their deck, and then draws cards equal to the number of prize cards they have remaining. Well, if our opponent has 2 prizes remaining because they knocked out 2 Darkrai or Darkrai and a Moltres, after we Iono them, they got 2 prizes remaining. Then we use Menacing Fangs on the Arbok EX, and they have to discard those 2 cards, right? And Menacing Fangs says they have to discard 2 cards in their hand, but we Iono them down to 2. In a perfect world, that's kind of how that would go. So we are able to do serious hand disruption with Arbok and Iono. One of the things that we do have to keep in mind is our opponent will be, look at a top deck. So against something like a Gardevoir deck, our opponent will be able to still use Refinement because they're going to get a top deck. And then they can discard that to draw 2, and then if they have they have 2 cards in their hand. They can discard one of them to draw 2 more with Refinement, and they can build. And then we have things like Bibarel. Let's say once during your turn, you would drop to 5 cards. So if you're playing something that your opponent runs a Bibarel, like Chien-Pao decks often have Bibarel, you can go ahead and you can Iono them down to 0, or Iono them down to 1 or 2, and then discard 1 or 2 with the Arbok, and they're still going to get 5 cards in their hand thanks to Bibarel, which is something that we have as well. It's a really good draw Pokemon, support Pokemon. So that is something to consider. A lot of decks do run Radiant Greninja. Discard an energy card, a basic energy card. Well, I guess it's really energy. Discard an energy card from your hand to draw 2 cards. So depending on what my opponent draws, they can discard an energy with Greninja to draw 2, or they can discard any card to draw 2 with something like Refinement. They can Bibarel. It's not a perfect, foolproof plan. It's not like there's no absolute guaranteed way to ensure that our opponent will not be able to draw cards, but it's really cool nonetheless, right? It's still a good way to put a lot of disruption on your opponent, and we can do it pretty easily, right? We can power up Menacing Fangs relatively easily. We had talked about items before with Darkrai, and we have Dark Patch, which says attach a basic energy or basic dark energy from our discard to one of our benched dark Pokemon. So if we go ahead, attach energy for turn to the Arbok EX, and then we can go ahead and play two Dark Patches, well, now we just powered this thing up. But how do we get those 2 Dark Patches? Well, the answer is we're going to use them throughout the game, and then we can use Darkrai V-Star's ability to get these 2 Dark Patches back from the discard and use them again. So effectively, we will have 6 Dark Patches to use for the game if we use all 4, and then use our 2 Starabus selections on the Dark Patch. We could also use it on something like Ultra Ball and Nest Ball to help us find Pokemon. Nest Ball, we can go ahead and search our deck for any basic Pokemon and put it directly onto our bench. Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from our hand, and then we can search a deck for any Pokemon. So something like the Radiant Greninja, the Ultra Ball, those are the really cool ways to get energies into the discard and provide a little bit of consistency for not only our Pokemon setup and draw, but also for Dark Patch. So we can get those energies into the discard so we can actually use them, the Dark Patches, to accelerate energies. Not only does that set up secondary attackers, but like we said before, uses or gets more damage out with Darkrai because we're putting more dark energies into play. So in a perfect world, we use 4 Dark Patches plus Starabus to get 2 back. Now we use 2 more. That's 6 dark energies in play on a single turn. But wait, we still have the Diaflame Wings. That's 7. And we have Attach Return. You could, in theory, right, technically, maximum, get 8 dark energies in play on a single turn. That means you could power up 2 Darkrai and I guess you couldn't, 2, 4, 7. You can get 2 Darkrai, or you can get a Darkrai, a Moltres, and an Arbok all powered up in a single turn. It's not likely that you're going to do that, but the idea is that you're always able to get those energies into play. Now, obviously, Arbok does evolve from the Ekans. I don't really care about Ekans attack. It's really not worth talking about. It is worth noting that the Arbok here has 270 health, and it has a retreat cost of 2 with a fighting type weakness. Why does the 270 health matter? Well, because we have Rigid Band. The stage 1 Pokemon that this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from attacks from your opponent, which is really good because now that 270 becomes 300. They have to do 300 damage in order to one-shot it. And if your opponent hits you for, say, 150, well, that 150 now becomes 120. So now they're hitting you for 120, that's 240. They have to take a 3-shot on this Arbok, which is pretty cool. The reason why we want to use something like Rigid Band on the Arbok is so that it stays in play. It's a little bit harder to KO, and that means we can continuously disrupt our opponent's hand. And this is not me saying like, oh, I bet that's why. This is directly from the website where I got this deck list from. That's what the creators of this list said why they included it. Is it really good? I don't know. This is just what they put in. We also have the Squawk ability EX, Squawk ability Squawk and Seize. We can only use this ability on the very first turn of the game, or on our first turn of the game. But what we can do is we can use this ability to discard our hand and draw 6 cards. This is really nice because if we have a bunch of stuff that we don't need in hand. We really need to maximize our consistency and find like Darkrai's. Maybe we want to put some dark energies into the discard. We got 13 of them, so we can go ahead and get those energies into the discard. We can go ahead and use the Squawk ability to help set up and find a little bit more of a consistent start. And the best part is we can use Nest Ball to get the Squawk ability, put it into play, and then use it at any point during our turn, as long as it's the first turn. We don't have to use it when we play it from our hand to the bench, which means you could Nest Ball for the Squawk ability, and then research, discard your hand, draw 7, or Iono, and then you can shuffle your hand, put it to the bottom, and then if you still don't find what you need off of your draw supporters, off of your Greninja, whatever, then you can go ahead and Squawk and Seize, discard all of it, and draw a fresh set of 6. It's really cool, and it's a great, first turn consistency piece, I think, anyway. The other card that we have in here is the Cycling Road. This is a new card with Pokemon 151. During each play's turn, you may discard a basic energy card from your hand. If you do, draw a card. That's really nice. It's half a Radiant Greninja. Discard an energy card, draw a card. It's kind of like trading, drawing a card for a dark energy, but again, this benefits us because it's an extra way to get energies into the discard for both Galarian Moltres and the Dark Patch, so that's really cool. We also have Experience Share, which is a pretty nice tool for something like this. It helps to keep our energies in play. Experience Share, when your active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, you may move a basic energy from that Pokemon to the one that this is attached to. So if we have a Darkrai in the active, and we have Arbok EX on the bench, if we attach a, this works better for like other Darkrai's or other Moltres, something like that, but, so we'll do that. We'll do Darkrai in the active, Moltres on the bench. What we can do is, this Darkrai has 2 energies on it. The Darkrai gets knocked out, Experience Shares on the Moltres, one of the energies from the Darkrai moves over to the Moltres before it goes into the discard. So now one goes to the Moltres, one goes to the discard. Well, now it's our turn. We use Dire Flamings to get that second energy that went to the discard back onto the Moltres, attach for turn, and now we're attacking for, with the Moltres in that same turn, which is really nice, which means we can move this to the active, promote it, do all that stuff, and we can still have our Dark Patches to power up our bench Pokemon without having to worry about finding a switch out. That's one of the challenges with Dark Patches, that since you have to power up benched Pokemon, you power up these Pokemon, then you need to attack with them. So we don't have a ton of switch options. We have just the 2 switches. You could use something like your Starbus to help find a switch that if you absolutely need it and you haven't used your V-Star power yet, you could use it. But really, we want to try to find our Dark Patches. We do have some supporters. We talked about Iono, Professor's Research, Roxanne. We can only use it if our opponent has taken 3 or more prizes. Then both players shuffle the hand into their deck. You draw 6, your opponent draws 2, which is really nice. And then Boss's Orders, take one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and put it into the actives. We have a copy of Palpad, so we can go ahead and reuse these supporters should we want them. That's really the whole deck. There's not a ton that goes into it. It's really just attack with Darkrai to do big damage in the very beginning of the game, and then as your opponent takes prizes, we can go ahead and use the Arbok to hit them without hitting them for a ton of damage. 150 is really not a lot, but you do have good weakness against things like Mew, good weakness against things like Gardevoir, so that's kind of cool. You'll be you're still not one-shotting a Gardevoir EX or even a Mew, because I think they both have 310 health, so that kind of stinks, even with the weakness. Not great. And then things like Mew, they can just draw with Genesect. Gardevoir, they have the concealed cards and the refinement. So I'm not super convinced that this deck is going to be like really good, but it can be really good against other things that don't have Bibarel, Radiant Greninja, Comfeys, or or the Kirlias, which now even Meowscarada's playing Kirlias, at least some of the lists I've seen, Meowscarada, Kirlia, things like that. So I'm not super convinced about this deck, but I do think it's something that's kind of cool. We don't see a lot of hand disruption, at least a lot of viable hand disruption. So the Arbok plus the Iono combo is really nasty. It can be really powerful. Even if your opponent does draw cards with like Refinement and Bibarel, there's no guarantee that they're going to find the things they need off of the Refinements and the Bibarel. That, they can use Refinement, but maybe they get rid of a card that they need, and so it forces them to make really difficult choices at times. So I don't think it's terrible. I just don't know how good it's gonna be, but this is something that I'll probably try at some point in the future. But there you go, that's the whole deck list. So there you have it, Darkrai, Arbok, Hand Disruption. Let me know what you think of this deck in the comments. I want to know, is there a particular deck from Pokemon 151 that you are really eager to try? Or is there something, does this pique your interest perhaps? I don't really know, but that's why I want you to tell me, and I'm kind of rambling. So that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, found it informative. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. Those YouTube, this is a good channel. Other people should watch it. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. I want to give a special shout out to the YouTube members, Black Wins, Mike the Highest, Fernando Ortiz, Chin Pokemon, and Eric N. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means a lot to me. And if you want to become a channel member, you can go ahead and click the channel member button somewhere at the bottom of the page. I'm not really sure. I haven't done it myself.